Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Leslie and Vanessa and Conrad. Good to see you guys. Love the color, Vanessa. Very spring.
Thank you. I'm feeling the cherry blossoms.
Yeah. Have you been? Is this your first time seeing them here?
Yes, they're so amazing. And I live right
Aren't
at
they?
the
They're
waterfront.
incredible. Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite times of year. I see Faraya and Tia. Good to see you guys.
Hello. Oh, my alarm's going off. Okay.
Oh, hope you feel okay, Faraya. Feel better. All right, it is 6. We'll give it just a minute here before we get started.
Okay.
Pastor Weisner and Conrad, who are members of this subcommittee, both have conflicts tonight.
Oh, okay.
So they won't be here.
Jorge.
But I see a good. Oh, hey, Conrad.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna say Conrad doesn't look particularly conflicted at the moment.
I
Oh,
can't see
sorry.
everyone.
Did I say Conrad? I meant Jorge. Conrad is very much present.
Okay.
It's good. I know my hair is getting long, but not quite as luscious as Jorge's.
Maybe a
Totally.
little
Sorry, compete.
conflicted then. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So yeah, we have a few subcommittee member conflicts, and then as we've kind of been discussing ongoing, this meeting still conflicts with the CBPA meeting this evening. So we are missing a couple of faces. I am really working to resolve that. I think hopefully we can settle into like an opposite rhythm starting in April. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, we just are a little late tonight, or I'm expecting that we will continue to be a little light on attendance because of that conflict. But yeah, we're trying to figure it out. All right, Kip, Tia, shall we get started?
Surely.
Recording in progress.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's March 25th, 2026. This is a public meeting of the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing, Policy and Reform Subcommittee, and I will hand it to Tia and Kip to start us off.
Okay. Let's see here. For some reason, Kip, can you start? Because my screen is like miniature.
Sure.
I need to expand real quick.
No problem.
Thank
My
you.
name's Kip Silverman. Use he, him pronouns. I have a bit of a cough tonight, so I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to try to mute before I cough out loud. I am co-chair of Policy Reform Subcommittee along with Tia. Tia, would you like to take it?
Sure, I just expanded it. Okay, thank you. My name is Tia Palafox, and I'll get everyone going here with the slides. Sorry, I can do it without the slides, but do you want the slides back up or no?
We're just doing intros, so
Okay.
PCCEP members want to
Okay,
introduce
sure,
themselves.
sure. My name is Tia Palafox, and I am the co-chair of the Policy and Reform Subcommittee of PCCEP. And thank you everyone for coming. Let's go ahead and get started with introductions. Oh, my pronouns are she, her. And Kip just went. Conrad, would you like to go next? Sorry.
Oh, thanks, Tia. I'm Conrad Hewlin, he, him pronouns. I'm currently serving as interim co-chair of the full committee, and pass it over, bearing audio issues, to Leslie.
Yeah, I got those fixed.
Oh, I think you muted Leslie.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be muted.
Look,
I
now
feel
you're here. You're here now.
How about this?
Yeah, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, Leslie Martinez, pronouns she, her, and PCCEP member with the Policy and Reform Subcommittee. Thank you. I will pass it on to Vanessa.
Thank you. I'm Vanessa Perry, she, her pronouns. I am a PCEP committee member. Freya, pass it to you.
Hi everyone, Faraya Vasquez Potter, PCEP member. No subcommittee yet.
All right, I think that's everyone. And now city staff, feel free to jump in. Community members, please join us with introductions in the chat. My name is Dory Grabinski, PCCEP Program Manager.
Hi everyone, Liz Taylor, PCCEP Program Coordinator.
Hi, everybody. I'm Judith Mowry. I'm the Interim Director of the Office of Equity and Human Rights. And I appreciate that folks reached out to make sure I came to the meeting. Thanks.
Thanks for being here.
Christopher Taft, he, him pronouns, Mayor Wilson's office.
Thank you.
I'll jump in. Chris Griffin, Portland Police in the Chief's office.
Thank you.
I guess I'll go next. Hi, everybody. My name's Jennifer Butcher. I'm the acting lieutenant in the Behavioral Health Unit with the Portland Police Bureau.
Thank you.
All right, I think we can. Oh, maybe Captain Jackson. Sound come off mute. All right, I think we can move on to the next slides for now. And Tia, would you like to take it from here?
Sure. Our community agreements, like every meeting, are listen actively and respectfully, share airtime, be present and open to new information and perspectives, assume positive intent, respect each other, respect the group, speak your own truth, communicate directly, honestly, and respectfully, ask questions to clarify, call out bias, be okay with ambiguity. Thank you. The overview of today's meeting are updates at 6:05, Then we'll be talking about behavioral health drop-in centers and some other items along that line at 6:15. PSEF recommendation tracker, and then the PPB directive on deadly force and in custody death reporting procedures. Then public comment. Updates. Dory.
Great. I can take the first couple updates, just more internal stuff. I'll start with the one on the bottom, which I already mentioned at the top of this, but we are trying to figure out this conflict. We do conflict this evening, and hopefully we will be able to avoid that moving forward. We're working on it. Our community engagement coordinator, new PCCEP staff starts tomorrow, which is very exciting. And then just a couple things on the radar here. We have a member retreat coming up next Saturday and PCCEP elections at the end of next month. And then I'll take the next slide as well.
Thank you.
Oh wait. Oh
Oh.
yeah. I mean, I can cover this because I think I'm
Okay.
the next one too. So yeah, just keeping everyone updated that the PCCEP paragraphs have officially been terminated from the settlement agreement. And as we discussed last meeting, the mayor's office has swiftly worked to put forth an emergency ordinance for the codification of PCCEP in tandem with that action. We are hoping to get on the evening council schedule for April, and yeah, we will keep everyone posted about those agendas as they are released. Yeah. And then next slide. Okay, yeah, this one is the one I was looking for. So in PCCEP's last meeting, the committee adopted a recommendation to hold community engagement and a listening session around the PPA contract negotiation process. And so I just wanted to provide an update that the Bureau of Human Resources has agreed to co-host that with PCCEP. It is currently scheduled for April 11th, which is another Saturday from 12 to 2. The location they were originally working with is was the Portland building. We are looking into potentially more accessible venues, and we will update you if we are able to move forward with a different venue. But yeah, so the news really is that BHR does want to collaborate with PCCEP and committee members to co-host this event. So I scheduled some time for members to talk about that on April 1st. And you know, that might look like promotion, shaping the run of show for the event, and also PCCEP members supporting the actual like how the events actually run. So more to come on that, and discussions to be had around that. Just wanted to update you on that movement. Any questions on anything I've shared?
No, other than that's awesome, and thank you for working on that.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yeah. Great development. Anything else? Okay, I will hand it back to Tia for the rest of the updates.
Thank you. Okay, on this, we're going to be having a meeting with the PPA president, Schmautz. What's his first name? Eric?
Aaron.
Aaron, that's right. To prepare for the listening session that will be happening the next day. Sorry, I didn't have anything written for this. Just wanted to let you know that PCCEP members will be meeting with PPA to get organized and hopefully build relationship. Thank you. The next update is mask restrictions for law enforcement. On March 6th, the Oregon passed House Bill 4138, part of the Law Enforcement Visibility and Accountability Act. This will be restricting officers from wearing masks and requiring visible identification. This law applies broadly to local, state, and federal officers operating in Oregon, with limited exceptions like undercover, or medical use. Designed to increase transparency, prevent impersonation, and improve accountability during enforcement actions. The Portland City Council is advancing a local ordinance introduced by Councilor Samir Kanal as well to ban masks for PPB, require visible badges and ID, includes language about allowing officers to verify identity and intervene when other LEOs cannot demonstrate legitimate law enforcement authority. And I have LEO written somewhere, but I can't remember right now what LEO is.
Law enforcement officer.
Thank you. Also, our local Judge Simon has restricted tear gas use at federal agents by federal agents at protests outside the Portland ICE facility. This was in the news. Tear gas and other munitions can only be used when there is an imminent threat of physical harm. This ruling came after lawsuits, including from the ACLU of Oregon, alleging excessive force against peaceful protesters and journalists. The courts found evidence of indiscriminate use of tear gas on nonviolent crowds, including children and bystanders. That's okay. Thank you. Updates to PPB directive review process. There's a new update for the directives. This is going to remove the first universal review step due to low participation, low public comment, and feedback has often been already known or duplicate of known issues. And it'll expand the public comment period. So now it's going to be 60 days, and this was formerly the second universal review. This will give more time for the public to give input before policies take effect. It'll create ongoing open engagement pathways. Public can submit policy change ideas now anytime, new formal process and upcoming web form to come. It will allow minor administrative updates without public review. Formatting, definitions, references can be changed internally. Clarifies structure and purpose of directives. It will be adding definitions and updates on languages on what directives do and don't do. And I wanted to say that this directive is the 10.00, if you're keeping a track on the directives that are coming up for review.
All right, I think those are all of the updates. Any questions or comments on anything that was shared in that section?
I got nothing.
Alrighty. Okay, yeah. All right, Kip, go ahead and take the next section.
Yeah, so in our previous meeting, we had some conversations around the severing of some of the articles in the settlement agreement around mental health and mental health issues, specifically around the behavioral health drop-in centers clause in the settlement agreement, and being able to help folks with in need and make it easier for interactions with police and others to have a place to bring people who are in a mental health crisis. As you can see in the bullets here, Mental Health Alliance and other amici had concerns about terminating those paragraphs. I believe they are now officially terminated, is what I heard. Please, somebody correct me if I'm incorrect. That the only current center that will accept people, although was an argument about actual drop-ins, is Unity, and is that in meeting the need or not? And that without more opportunities and places to engage and bring people, that this can create more issues and unintentional or bad outcomes. So now that the agreement or those paragraphs have been severed from the settlement agreement, we have a ongoing conversation that was asked by those folks and the amici to talk about further finding out if we want to pursue as a committee a gathering more information, which I think we do, and see what potential outcomes can come from it on what other opportunities or possibilities are there for drop-in centers or 24/7 services being available, and also discussion of I don't think this got updated from our previous meeting, but that's okay. Discussion of not only we understand that the county has specific roles to play in mental health, and the city often has frontline workers, first responders interacting with people in crisis. But what came out of the previous conversation was wanting to understand better how is the city working with the county currently on solving some of these problems, and what might be upcoming, or what more can we do to facilitate that. Does anybody have any questions, clarifications? Did I summarize that well for the other folks that had attended? Okay, I like the thumbs up. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll just add, I know in the last meeting, Christopher did mention that on the website, Unity Center of Behavioral Health does say that they provide walk-ins. It says they are an inpatient mental health treatment center that allows walk-ins and drop-offs, except for youth who are 9 to 17 years old.
Right, but I think there was pushback on that, and that's why we're going this route. I'm sorry, I'm off camera because I was finishing my dinner, but yeah. So I think there was pushback on that, and then it sounds like even Unity's own CEO has like also said that they don't, they're not like a walk-in center as dictated by the settlement agreement. So I think that's what we're trying to do. And Barb put a question in the chat about like, why didn't we invite Unity folks? I think right now we're in the stage of where we're just kind of exploring this recommendation, but I think in the future, should this move forward, we definitely will.
Yeah. And the purpose of this conversation is to have a conversation about what questions does PCCEP have, what questions do our guests that have joined tonight, our community, and try to learn more about where things are at so that we can make a decision whether we should continue pursuing this based on the request from the amici to have PCCEP keep looking into it. So from that perspective, trying to frame it through the framing points that have been put here, from a priority level, how do we feel the urgency on working on this? I'll answer that question first myself. The entire settlement agreement was predicated primarily on the not great outcomes between interactions between PPB and people who were in mental health and other forms of crisis. So I feel when I joined PCCEP that this was a core aspect of what I wanted to be working on, is to work on public safety in general and helping the city, PPB, and others improve those outcomes. Do we have other thoughts from committee members on from a topic standpoint, urgency or priority. I see Conrad's hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I think this poses an interesting situation about where PCEP fits in the conversation because we report to the city, and as we've established, a lot of the mental health services are under the jurisdiction of the county and the state. But I do think it is warranted that we at least encourage, recommend, and push that the city should be partnering with their peers at the county level and at the state level, because the city can't do it alone. And short of us having a unified city and county, I didn't say that, you know, we need to actually work on solutions for those in mental health crises. So it is something that's very important. I think it's important to stay grounded, that maybe within our scope, we can only do so much, but we should do something, depending on how other committee members feel.
No, I appreciate that. Anyone else have thoughts?
Barbara, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, Barbara, sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
That's all right. Thank you. Portland Cop Watch feels that this is very important. It's like the whole point of the settlement agreement almost, or a big part of it. So getting rid of the drop-in centers, maybe Unity Center says in their website that they do some, but they sent a letter definitely saying that they are not a drop-in, walk-in, drop-off center, which I believe is different because Unity Center has psychiatrists and other trained psychiatric personnel. And a drop-in center would be more low-key and have peer counseling. Maybe Barb knows about this. I'll leave that part for her. And which more people would be willing to go to, and they wouldn't have to wait till they're totally in a crisis, and they kind of try to get things calmed down. And so anyway, the whole point of the settlement agreement is, or the big part of it is law enforcement not having to deal with people in mental health crises because they're not therapists or psychologists or social workers.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
ahead,
Barb,
Barb.
go ahead. Barb, you're on mute if you are talking.
Okay. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We hear you now. Not because I can't hear you because I was flipping between two things. Okay, sorry about that. First of all, I'm curious, and of course I should have looked it up. What is the definition of a drop-in center that as in what they're looking for from the settlement agreement? That's sort of my first comment. And Unity, I think I'm not sure how much experience anybody here has with Unity or is willing to share. But they're the number one place that they do take people in crisis. And they get to hang out in basically like dental chairs. A bunch of chairs kind of lined up in the same place. And then if it's longer term than like 48 hours ish, I can't remember the rules. They do have slightly longer term psychiatric beds. So I implore you guys to figure out before pushing for something that we clearly don't have in the city. And we're working really, really hard on the county level to bring the Pathway Center online as much as possible. And that will have sobering. And to be honest, there's a bunch of politics around what else it may or may not have as far as psychiatric help. There's at least one county commissioner that is strongly pushing toward that. But I will say that the last budget cycle, there was an ask of the city to put money into the Pathway Center. And the city chose not to do it at that point. So I know that has soured some of the relations between the two groups around that. And then the last thing I just want to say is one of the things that's important to realize is that the county is the local mental health authority, and they hold the power to let their clinicians do holds on people. Like the city doesn't have that power at all, but the county is the one that puts that there, has it. And so that's why Project Respond can write holds and Portland Street Response can't, if anybody was wondering.
Right.
I think I'm done for now. Thank you for letting me talk. I hope I helped somebody somewhere.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Real quick, Sergeant Butcher, under React, if you see React at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should be able to click that and that'll give you the opportunity to raise your hand. I just wanted to be able to answer it. I can't type right now because my cat is sleeping on my keyboard. But also along with that, let's hear from Sergeant Butcher first, and then we could address a couple of questions that Barb had or clarifications or comments in the chat with what the definition is.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm really not really familiar with the technology, so I apologize for that. It might seem pretty simple for some, but it's complicated for me. However, I just wanted to add a little bit, that hasn't been, and I spoke to several people today, kind of getting some questions answered, if you will, just so I was a little more prepared for today's meeting. But we have not had that experience, nor have we had that feedback as far as pertaining to Unity and it not being a drop-in center. So that is really new information to me, and now it gives me an opportunity that I can circle back around and speak to maybe Melissa Eckstein and other people within Unity and maybe get a little more clarification on your website says this, however, it doesn't seem to be the perception of everybody that folks can walk in. I also wanted to make note of the Urgent Walk-In Center off of 42nd Division, run by Cascadia. I don't know if anybody has had any experience with that location. I know over this last year, they've had, unfortunately, some budget cuts that have restricted their hours a little bit. However, that is something I know our patrol officers do use, and it is what I think most people think of as a drop-in center. Like, here's an officer who has a contact with somebody, not holdable, but needs some assistance, needs a connection, and they are able to take them there. But like I said, it is kind of limited as far as their availability, but I will make note of the Unity question and hopefully be able to at least provide an email back to somebody as far as, maybe some additional clarification. So that's all I had to add to that.
No, thank you. I don't know that in previous conversations, because this has come up multiple times over the 2.5 years that I've been here on PCCEP, that this is a ongoing challenge, and I don't think anybody has actually mentioned that Cascadia had a drop-in center on Division, so that's news to me. But also, like Kat mentioned and you mentioned, that hours have been shortened. So I think that goes back to one of the main challenges is that the city and the county both own part of this, obviously. And there's always going to be some crossover. It's not so simple, just like housing isn't simple. And as Conrad suggested, short of having a single government that can do all the things theoretically, are there, and Christopher, maybe you might have some input on this. Are there efforts to bridge those conversations between the city and county to address some of these things? I'll make one more comment, and then I'll let folks that have knowledge try to answer. But I did reach out to some folks on the Community and Public Safety Committee about the holistic public safety plan coming out, and there weren't a lot, if any, specific areas around addressing mental health needs. And once again, like I said previously, this is something, whether the city's directly responsible for or not, has a major role to play in it, because our first responders are the first responders. So if anybody has any input, answers, or ideas on what is currently happening, I'd love to hear it. And if there aren't any cogent things going forward, I think that will help inform our potential opportunities to work on this.
Yep, can I just go ahead and
Yeah, please
I'll just go
go.
ahead and speak.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say for certain what conversations are being had or aren't being had. But I do agree with you that this is even though it's, you know, the certain paragraphs are removed from the settlement agreement, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, all of this has been, I won't say fixed, if you will, right? We still have a population of people out there that are still not getting the services they need. Now, I think primarily, you know, some of those services, or a lot of them, do end up in the county, but I agree with you. I think the city, we as the first responders who are going, you know, we have to still search for answers. We still have to search for solutions, and not give up until we find those solutions. I can't say we're in control of them, but I think as long as we are invited to the table and we continue to show up and share our voices and bring to light that, you know, there's still a tremendous amount of work to be done to help our community, that we don't let that, you know, we don't let that fall off the table, if you will. So I know, you know, Captain Jackson and then, you know, Chris Griffin will do their part to at least take it back to the people that need to hear it as well. But then in the circles that I travel in the behavioral health world, we will continue to search for, you know, other options and how do we, you know, connect those gaps, if you will. Because it's obvious if, you know, Cascadia, because they are county, like if they're, you know, they're facing budget crisis as well as the city, right? And cutbacks and whatnot, like somebody still has to fill those gaps, you know, and those conversations still need to continue. I know that's really not a great answer, but I guess for me, it's like, I am committed to continue those conversations, because there's still a need, and it is, you know, far from being, I guess, you know, remedied, if you will. So
No, I
that's what I had
really
to offer.
appreciate that. Thank you. And I think just the acknowledgement that there's more work to be done is an important thing. Sergeant Schmautz had said maybe a year and a half, maybe 2.5 years ago, I can't recall. I think it was November 2023, possibly 24. I'm not sure. Sorry. But that when an officer is engaging with someone who is in a mental health crisis or any kind of crisis, the nexus of options are basically in the realm of law enforcement, right? Are they breaking the law? Are they listening to compliance commands and stuff like that? And that can tend to create situations that that police officers are not prepared for. So it's really critical we do address that.
I'm just gonna jump in to kind of wrap us up with this conversation, but I want to pose a question, which is if we were to talk about this again, what questions do members or anybody have, and who would you want to potentially talk to Yeah.
I can jump in. Oh, sorry, Leslie, didn't see your hand. I just have questions on you know, is Unity able to continue this process of what is happening now, the current status? And I guess more input from the county and the city to have those conversations. I know that there are things in progress, it looks like, in the community. And I think just holding space for the city and the county to just update us on, what are the long-term goals? How soon can we reach a place where we want to be? And in the meantime, is depending on Unity to fill those gaps a strain to them, and their perception of how it's going.
That's great. Leslie, did you want to add anything?
No, it's just the same question around Unity, because like that's the one missing component we haven't spoken to, where it's like, we've heard that the website says they are, but folks are not experiencing them that way. So I think like a clear answer there
Okay.
would be good.
So what I'm hearing is clarity about Unity's status, comments they've made versus their website and how they are actually functioning. And then just more transparency about how the city and county are working together on these issues and their assessment of how things are going, is broadly what I heard there. Kip, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, you hit or you nailed what the primary thing I wanted to mention, but also, yeah, what are the opportunities for intergovernmental work to address some of these issues? If one government agency doesn't have funding for a certain thing, but another might, or they can combine and work with the state, I really feel like there's a lot of opportunities that don't seem to be being pursued. And I'd like to understand if there's maybe we need an intergovernmental committee to work on it, a PCCEP for mental health or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'd love to be able to talk with folks that are in that realm of the policy space to find out what could be happening.
Cool. All right. I think those are some good next steps as far as how this might surface in the future. I think we can wrap up this discussion, but yeah. Get the
Right on.
slides,
Thanks,
please.
everybody.
Okay, and I think we have Leslie up next. If you want to just kind of jump into this, Leslie, and I put a summary
Yeah, I can do
here.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we are trying to put our recommendations into a dashboard that will be an interactive, like searchable thing. Because right now, all of our recommendations, like you can go back and see them because they're hosted on the website, but on the web page, but it's just a long list. There's really no organization to it. So the dashboard is meant to be a little bit of a, give folks a better visibility into PCCEP's recommendations and impact. So that's where we're at right now. And so the goal with that, as it says here, is like we are going to be able to evaluate kind of where our recommendations stand, our recommendation process. It might even give us insight into like recommendation topics that we're tackling a lot versus not, things like that we can't see right now. So our first step is to basically get all of our recommendations that we have into a spreadsheet. And then I am going to share that and walk folks through what that looks like. So this will be a little bit of a working session. I think I have the permission to share. I do not have the permission to share. So I'm sending a request. Okay, should be good now. Okay, so here is the recommendation tracker as it currently stands. Can everybody see this spreadsheet okay?
Yes.
Okay, so on the first column, you'll see this is the recommendation name. I'll just walk you through the columns real quick. The date that it was approved by PCCEP, the permanent link to the recommendation as it is in the PCCEP web landing page. When it was adopted, the responses, like who responded, and then there's a link to that response as well. So this is like very standard stuff. The data that we're populating right now is whether it was adopted or how it was adopted, and then who the recommendation was made to. Through a simple formula, it was we show here how long it took to respond to that recommendation, and that's important because, as we know, the commitment is to respond within 60 days. And then we get into the fields that need to be populated. And this is where we're not going to do that in this meeting, but where I'm hoping to get some volunteers to help us flesh these out. And it's not a long list of recommendations. I think it's like 27 or so recommendations that we need to populate. But the idea would be that we populate the implementation, which means like what were the direct actions based on the recommendation that the mayor or the whoever we made the recommendation to took based on the recommendation. And then we also want to populate and make sure that we track these recommendations in reference to like what kind of recommendation they were. And there could be multiple types of recommendations, but these were pulled from the PCCEP plan, which, you know, so our categories for the type of recommendation in order to give us some organization is the constitutional policing piece, the use of force piece, the interactions with people experiencing behavioral health crises, and then racial justice. So that's where we pulled those recommendation categories. And then affinity groups engaged is another column, and that'll be like the communities that we spoke to in order to create that recommendation. And the idea there is that it will give us the opportunity to see communities that we're engaging with on a regular basis versus not, you know, show us maybe some areas of opportunity there. The current status would be eventually a drop down, and kind of with the idea there is that we're still figuring out exactly what the labeling system would be, but it would be a simple drop down where we label the recommendation as like, right now, for example, would be on track, not on track, and complete. We're still figuring out exactly what that status is. We're going to align it with what the city is going to use for their own kind of tracker that they're working on. And then any updates, this will be a narrative field where we will you know, kind of type in from time to time, potentially what, like the most recent outcomes of the recommendation. As we know, sometimes like, I think one example would be the contact survey, right? That has been a long process. And so every once in a while, we would go in here and update where it stands now to give the community an idea of like the progress that it's made there. So that's kind of in a nutshell the columns. And then to give you all an idea just visually of what this will potentially feed into, I mean, it's definitely in the early stages. I wanted to share a very rough draft, like, please don't judge me. This is partially hand-drawn, partially computer. But I wanted to show you all like our draft dashboard, so you can see how all of these pieces fit into that. One moment. Okay. Okay, so this, oops, it went away. One second. Okay, there we go. So this is, again, a very, very rough outline of the of the potential dashboard. As you can see across the top here, we have our filters. So our recommendation body, which is typically two, it's either the police chief or the mayor. Sometimes it could be the council, so it could be three. But that way it would filter and affect all of these different data segments. Another filter could be year. So we can filter recommendations by the year they were recommended and see if there were more recommendations one year versus another. And then the current status, that could be important, and that's why it's a drop down. So we know like how many recommendations are on track. I foresee people using this as like probably filtering down to the recommendations that are in progress or not on track or something like that, so that they can see, so they can dive into those a little bit more and drill down. One, for example, is this like approval timing that we could take a look at and see. Across the x-axis we have like the request recommendation type, and it would be like the time to response would be in days, so that we could see if certain recommendation types took longer to respond than others. That could give us some insight into that. This one here would be the request count. So again, the request type being those categories from the PCCEP plan, and letting us know if we're letting us know how many recommendations for that specific request type we are making, so that we know if we're making a lot in a certain area versus not in other areas of the communities or the categories, I guess, that we're supposed to serve. And then affinity groups, one idea is to have it be in like a pie chart, so that we can see how often we're consulting specific, like certain affinity groups, and see if we're, consulting some more than others and what we're missing and stuff like that. And then this would all be just, filters and drill downs and stuff like that, but where we would really end up being like, where I think a lot of people would go is like, once they drill down to like the specific thing that they're looking for, they would get a table of recommendations that fulfill those like categories that would link them to the specific recommendation, like language, so that then they could explore that themselves and read more through the permanent link of the recommendation. So in a nutshell, again, this is all like very early stages, like maybe some of this is not super important, and we can definitely pivot, but that would be the idea of how the spreadsheet would feed this type of dashboard. And yeah, going back to the spreadsheet, we have a majority of what we need, but we do need folks. My hope is to get a few volunteers to help read some past recommendations. For the future recommendations, I think we could be building them out with these fields in mind and this data that we're looking to collect in mind. But in the absence of that, for the past recommendations, we do need some folks to help us, populate these areas. But yeah, that's kind of where it stands, and I'm very open to feedback from folks and want to hear what you all think so far. Anything that we're missing that you think would be super important, would love to discuss and see if it makes sense to add and whatnot. Tia?
I just had a question on the numbers on the, well, I have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
On the time to respond, is that how many days it took to get a response?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And when we write a recommendation, does the mayor and the chief both have 30 days to reply or 60? Or is that taken into account here?
No, this is just the time that it took to respond.
Okay. When we don't get a response, is that implementation? Well, can you continue to ask for it? And I'm sorry. I'm just wondering what we do with when they don't respond or when it's not implemented. Do we just let the recommendation be, or do we keep working on it?
Well, I think that's so like when they don't respond, maybe that's what these mean, because there are some fields that we don't have days for. But I think I mean, this is again like from the point that we submit the recommendation to when they respond to us.
Okay.
I don't know that we've had that issue, Dory.
Yeah, I don't even the missing ones, it would be impossible for me to know if because record keeping prior to 2022 is really pretty bad. So it would be impossible to know if those two actually didn't get responded to. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Or if they're just lost. But Tia, I don't think, I mean, I guess this tracker would be a way to document if something isn't
Yeah.
responded to, but that is, a requirement, and generally in the last 5 years or so has not been a problem. Yeah, implementation is sort of a whole other question, which I think is really a huge asset of this tracker. Is really, yeah, one of the great things about this idea.
Thank you.
Kip?
Yeah, first of all, this is awesome. This is everything I could have wished and hoped for the last couple of years. So great job.
Thanks.
Be happy to help with whatever I can on it. I did have some I like how you broke down the different categories in the green there. I think that is like a really phenomenal addition to the previous incarnation. I don't think I saw it previously. But yeah, I am really curious on maybe creating some process around how we evaluate the implementation. I think the only thing would that's missing that I think could be subjective is efficacy. What we recommend, if it is accepted and implemented, are we seeing the results that we had hoped to see from it over time when it's in place? And that would maybe be a next phase of doing this, because I think we'd have to figure out how do we evaluate that in a consistent manner. But this is phenomenal, and I think you should get the very first PCCEP data gold star.
Thanks, Kip.
You're
That's
welcome.
very kind. Yeah, I think one of the challenges, I think you're nailing it on the head, is around the efficacy piece. I feel like the couple of pieces that are a little bit subjective are hard. Like implementation, I think we have a pretty good idea because these are like the direct actions taken, and like so we'll know. When it comes to like update and current status, that is a little bit of a concern for us, and how do we say like it's on track or not, or or if we hear about something, can we directly tie it? But it kind of sounds like a direct, like a recommendation that we sent out. Like, can we reasonably attribute it to that recommendation? So there are still a few questions there. There's also
go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that there's also a challenge around like how do we keep this updated? I think Dory and Liz brought, obviously will be the members will fall off and on, but like Dory and Liz would be the folks staying on. But even they, like, would they be able to continuously update this? Like there's a bandwidth like thing there, because especially as recommendations grow, then the scale of updates is going to grow because you're not just
Right.
updating the handful of recommendations, you're also so I think that's, in addition to like the efficacy, that's one of the things we need to figure out as well, like a process, like at what point do we, you know, do we go like a year and then that's the last update?
Right. No,
So-
no, I appreciate that because like the one that came to mind would be like Normandale, right? Normandale had a specific outcome, but it also had some general on updates on communication when an event happens. So
Yeah, one thing Leslie and Liz and I discussed. So I think moving forward, Leslie alluded to this. PCEP could do something with the recommendations, like add something that says like successful implementation would look like X. And create, like, build some of these metrics into the actual writing of the recommendations. Because it does need to be because they're also different. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. I do think it will be a lot harder for the past recommendations. Maybe some of them would be attainable, or we could figure out implementation. I don't know about others, to be quite honest with you. But opportunities to kind of bake this into the process moving forward.
Yep.
Christopher, I saw your hand up. Maybe it's just what you put in the chat. I don't know if you wanted to speak on that.
Yeah, that was all. I just wanted to say about the 60 days in the new codification language.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments or questions about Leslie's project from PCEP or community?
And volunteers to come help
Yes.
fill out the data.
Right.
Honestly, I feel like if we could take, among the PCEP current body, if we each could take 2 recommendations and just help flesh out, that would, like, hopefully not be too much of a lift, and we could crank this out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Kip volunteered, and I think maybe now that other folks are more aware of the project, we can connect about it via email too. Seeing some more ideas about it in the chat as well.
I think we should draw names out of the hat at the retreat.
I also saw that Barb volunteered to help, and I do think that's something you could, that's something you could decide as a committee as well, if you'd like to engage community in supporting the actual work. I think that would be completely fine.
Cool.
That's the decision that you all can make.
No, I love that. I don't see, this is all public, so I don't see any reason to gatekeep. Barb, I will be reaching out to you.
Great. Anything else on this?
Comments from the community? Cool. I will stop sharing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Really appreciate your work on that. All right, and we just have one more item for this evening. Jumping into another directive that is up for review. Kip, do you want to introduce this and in tandem with Tia?
Yeah. So this is a directive that is in second universal review. It is can you go back a slide, because I don't remember the full name off the top of my head. It is a directive around deadly force and in custody death reporting and investigation procedures. Okay, you can move forward now. Thank you. And the reason we brought this forward as an agenda item was that it was, first of all, the reporting and investigation aspects directly pertain to what PCEP does. And like many directives, they are complicated and kind of dense, and the changes that were recommended or recommended redlined in the second universal review, we had a lot of questions about what the intent was, why certain things were struck, why things were rephrased. And there was a meeting with, uh, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. It's been a long day.
I think Ashley Lancaster.
Lancaster, thank you so much, Chris. To discuss and go through some of it, and there were some notes that were taken that this slide speaks to, and just some clarification that this is not about using deadly force, it's about the reporting and investigation aspects of it. So want to be very, very clear of that. That the primary changes that they made were for clarification and cleaning up, which is what many of the directive changes are focused on, making things clearer to the PPB members that have to execute against these. And also there were some policy clarifications. One that jumped out to me was the objectively reasonable and constitutional force standard, why in the definition was being struck, but hadn't been referred to in the actual ordinance itself. And that was a clarification that it didn't need to be in there. And then this was really interesting because this was unclear to me as well, that there's a difference between an involved member, meaning an officer that had used or contributed to use of deadly force, or witness member who was there but did not contribute to it. So there are a lot of different, I would say, perfunctory clarifications and changes that were made in the text of it. Can we move to the next slide? So some of the updates in it, and again, we brought this up because these are complicated. We are generally not subject matter experts on it, and that the being able to have clarity around all of this helps us do our jobs better. So I just want to frame that. That is also how we framed it when Dory did her coordination meeting. But there were some investigation process updates that were substantial, I think. The 48-hour rule affirmed some training and oversight changes, which I think could be spoken to as well. It'd be great to understand more about those. And then the administrative updates, which we're referencing, as you can see, body worn cameras and other terminologies, and how that may impact the investigation and reporting process. So that is kind of like the high level overview of what we wanted to discuss tonight. I think I'll start by asking PCEP members if there's any questions around this. The discussion part of it, or the framing of the discussion, as opposed to specifically to the directive. And yes, Tia, as always, we want to bring these important things forward and get input from the community, because that is why we are here. So, and if not, if I do have a couple questions I'd like to pose, if it's okay if I go first. Can we bring the second to last slide back up? If you don't mind, Liz, thank you. So, one of the questions I have around the investigation process updates, that there was a change of the order of the statement process of talking to witness members first before involved members made statements. And I understand the aims to limit premature statements made, and then that 48-hour rule are kind of combined in the questions that I have. But I'm curious about the internal affairs staff that are available to do these interviews. And if there's a if there's a specific reason for doing it as a cadence rather than to have a handful of investigators take the statements within as right after an incident happens. I'm not sure I fully understand the 48-hour waiting, and I know that's been a point of contention in previous meetings also. But on the first point, is there a reason that there aren't enough investigators to take reports in at the same time, theoretically at the same time? Does that make sense, that question?
So this is Dave Jackson. I'm currently the captain at training, but I actually worked as the lieutenant at internal affairs before this assignment. So I can answer it a little bit for you.
Thank you.
I can tell you there's 2 internal affairs investigators
Okay.
that are on call. Now, part of the benefit of the 48-hour rule is it it allows those IA investigators to gather as much information on the scene of that call as possible. Because if they were able to respond, they really don't have a lot of information because it's still being gathered on the scene. I mean, detectives are working on that case for sometimes days, weeks, or months later, just trying to gather as much information as they can. So really that 48 hours, I mean, the IA investigators behind the scenes, and you got to remember there's 2 different parts to this. There's a criminal investigation that's going on behind the scenes by detectives, and then there's an IA investigation, which is more administrative in process, looking at policies and directives. And then there's also a training review, which is a third layer on this as well. So that IA investigation, they're trying to gather as much information as they can before they do those initial interviews, which is reviewing the call. They can review body cam footage other than from the involved member. They can, take a look at evidence that's gathered by forensic evidence division. They can start looking at some of those things, looking at the call history, and 48 hours seems like a long time for them to gather that information, but it really comes up quick on them.
Okay,
And-
yeah, no, I appreciate that explanation. And on the reordered of the statement process, is it because there are 2 on call at any time, so you're limited as to how many interviews you can actually do in a particular time frame?
Well, so the 48 hours applies to the involved members. So the witness members are typically giving statements to detectives on scene.
Okay.
Now, the involved members are the ones that have the 48-hour. And in terms of that, that's always kind of been the priority. You're trying to get as much information from witness members on scene without having to interview those involved members because they do have rights. They've got, criminal rights as well as Weingarten rights, which is for, administrative investigations. So you're trying to get as much of that information. And ideally, you're not going to put them in that moment on the scene while they're on the call there after they've been involved in this to provide that statement, unless you absolutely have to.
Okay.
And that's just, from the sergeant perspective, you're trying to gather as much information as you can without having to rely upon them at the time.
Okay,
And I
cool.
think
No,
when I heard your
thank you.
question, Kip, it does sound specifically like I don't know if we were clarifying the difference between witnesses versus involved members. And just like the captain had said, I think you'd mentioned, like, why aren't there enough like investigators to talk to all the witnesses within 24 hours? And it's important to clarify the difference between witnesses are being interviewed right away.
Okay.
Involved members are different.
That's a great clarification also. It wasn't clear to me when people were interviewed and what, if there were 8 officers at the scene, as a hypothetical, how it's all figured. It makes sense that you would talk to witnesses sooner, and then you had that 48-hour waiting period. Okay, that helps clarify things in my head. I really appreciate that.
Barb, did you want to ask your question that you put in the chat?
Sure. Can you guys briefly explain why you're talking about the 48-hour rule, and what that means? And also I meant to add, isn't that also part of the collective bargaining junk stuff? Important things? I'm getting Gloria to laugh. I like that. That's it. That's my question. I don't know who's going to answer it. Mary Claire's gone.
Well, so I can tell you it's part of this directive, so it kind of outlines it in the directive as well as I believe it's in the PPA contract. But I mean, this is in the directive in terms of administratively. I mean, this directive is much more of an administrative directive as opposed to how the force is applied. It's actually more how the force is investigated. So this kind of outlines how the investigative units are conducting those reviews on those cases. So I mean, the 48-hour rule basically says involved members involved in a category 1 use of force or a deadly force scenario have to be interviewed within 48 hours. And the 48 hours is the maximum amount of time. Typically, those are occurring earlier than that because some of these OISs are occurring at middle of the night or early in the morning. So we're not trying to bring people in at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning for those interviews. So we try to get those things scheduled, but they all occur within 48 hours. And that's the involved members are interviewed within 48 hours. I hope that clarifies it.
Thank you, Captain Jackson.
Do we have other questions out there? Not yet. Okay.
Anything else you all, Lieutenant Griffin and Captain Jackson, wanted to speak to with regards to this directive? I know that you also talked to Ashley before this meeting.
I mean, I think I would say that the biggest thing is, like Ashley had said, the directive is up for second universal review up until April 15th. Feedbacks, make sure you put that in. The police directives are on the internet. I keep confusing internet and intranet because that's an internal system, but it's at both places. But that's where people can make their comments and feedback for those directives as part of the process for this. And just of note, I mean, this directive was last updated in like 2017, so it has been a while since it was updated. So it's definitely a key time for people to make those updates and comments.
No, I appreciate that. And I did want to ask about the body worn camera inclusion. And I know it references back to the body camera policies, but are there aspects to that add to how the inclusion process will impact investigation and reporting?
So I can tell you, when I was in internal affairs, we had the first, use of body-worn cameras in a officer-involved shooting investigation, and it was just kind of, a learning experience for us because we had policies in place. And I think this is really a chance for that directive to kind of capture what we've learned from those investigations since then about how we collect the body-worn cameras, kind of clarifying for the members what the expectation is on scene, internal affairs. And just kind of everybody has a common understanding of how they're used in investigations.
No,
And
cool.
like I said, I think because the policy was last updated so many years ago, I think body cams have been we've had them for the last few years at this point, but I think this is a good opportunity to clean up some of that stuff since it wasn't in there before.
No, great. Thank you. Barb.
Hey, I just want to let you guys know that the body cam footage has been kind of cool. The BHU Advisory Council, the BHUAC, every March hears about the officer-involved shootings that have cleared enough that we can hear about them, and then also about the uses of force and how that compare and contrast with people in mental health crisis. And that first one is actually going to be posted, or the second one, sorry, it's going to be, that I said, it's going to be posted on the BHUAC website eventually, and I'll try to tell you guys when. But I have to say that this is the first year that I think that I recall that they used the body worn cameras as part of their presentation, and that made it a lot more interesting, I guess, in terms of hearing about that stuff, being able to see some of it. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Cool. Thank you, Barb. Appreciate that. I do know that there are rules around how body body worn cam footage is of use of force events. I'm assuming none of that had changed as part of it. It's just being referenced from this. So my apologies. This cough just won't stop. And I know that we had some other folks that were going to join, but I don't see them out there. So, are there other questions from PCEP members, clarifications, or from community that questions for our PPB liaisons?
I can read something that wasn't mentioned yet off my notes. When a police officer is transporting the person, they are an involved member because they were in their custody. And an in-custody death, shooting, or any reason, when they died in police custody, they're still going to do an administrative investigation, no matter how they died in police custody. Like if they had a heart attack or natural causes.
Yeah, what is your, I hear that. What is your question?
I was just reading my notes from Ashley today.
Okay.
And I can confirm, when I was in internal affairs, cases that did involve, they called them in custody death cases, until the medical examiner gave a determination, it would go through that typical review process. So. And those decisions would be made, between DA's office, detective division, internal affairs, professional staff. Like there's a lot of people making that decision, but I think, those are investigated. Those cases are looked at.
Cool. Thank you for that. Is there anything else out of the directive changes that you guys would like to highlight? All out there to be read. So, okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh,
Conrad.
Oh, just really fast. I just wanted to call out, and I think we'll share it with the full committee. It's just good habit that we review directives as they come up. There's a lot of folks, credit to the Bureau, that's a lot of administrative morass. That's my words, no one said that. But just getting cleaned up. But there are stuff that does and will have downstream effects. And this is a really good community opportunity to bring them to light, right? Sunshine's the best disinfectant, we know. So I think it's just a really good habit, and I really, really appreciate Kip, Tia, you continuing to shine a light. So thank you for the work.
Thanks, Conrad. And to that note, one of the first directive updates that we mentioned was the update to the directive update process. I'm never not going to enjoy saying that. But I know that we have brought this up in previous meetings, that there were some accessibility challenges with the current process, and everything I read about that update sounded like, even though we didn't do a recommendation on it, it sounded like feedback from the public and from PCEP had been heard, and I really do appreciate rethinking what Jared, who used to be our DOJ liaison, had said was a country-wide gold standard in public feedback on police directives. So I'll I was going to say pile on to Conrad, but to add on to Conrad, that we appreciate this process of being able to have these conversations and have clarity and community input and feedback on it. I think it's really important.
Yeah, and Conrad, again, to build on what you're saying, as you guys review policies that come up, as you find them, we don't have to wait for this platform to talk about it, and we're happy to talk about it also here. But you can contact any of the liaison, the PBB liaisons. We can talk. Whether we can pick up the phone and talk, or just through email, or meet in person for coffee and discuss it, and then also bring it to this platform so everyone can hear it. But it doesn't have to wait and for this platform to have the discussion. It's very helpful to get this information early, because we involve like Ashley Lancaster, for example, who's one of our lead policy writers, that can give us a lot of clarity into why some of the depth of why we're making some of the changes we're having, and answer your questions and the community questions very thoroughly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, like, I've been thinking about, I think there is desire on PCCEP's part and some community members to know more about PPB policies, and like we know that it is clearly a very significant part of what governs PPB's work, but also acknowledging that like it is it's hard to parse. It is dense, it is confusing. And so I think that's something we're going to be exploring moving forward, is how to bring that into this space, or maybe not always in this space. But figuring out the best way to work on this in a community setting, whether it's purely informative, whether there are desired changes, whatever it may be. And I think that will also be aligned with the increased community engagement that we're going to be doing. Yeah, and so just acknowledging, there are probably better ways we can do this, and that's something I think we're interested in exploring more. So we appreciate.
Yeah, I think this is a good start, though. I like how this
agree.
looks, where on the front end, we all talked about this policy. You had a chance to look at it. Ashley answered a lot of questions, and then in this format, you can highlight the changes, and then anyone can ask the questions about like the changes that are happening, and we can do our best to answer them here, or we can ask them outside of this, and then also bring those questions here. But it does help to see, you can lay out the changes in the format so everyone can look at it, and it's, instead of pouring through pages and pages and pages of policy, this makes it, I think, it pretty simple for most people to digest and look at, and look at the changes and say, like, why is that happening? Or maybe even think, people may look at this and have a question later that may pop up, and then we're still available. Any one of the members can reach out to us and say, hey, like, I thought about this last night after the fact, and I want some clarity on, like, why is this a thing? We're happy to answer those questions too after the fact.
Appreciate
Great. Love it.
Sorry.
Anything else, guys? I think, we have a little bit of time if there's anything. Leslie?
Yeah, sorry. Going back to the recommendation tracker, one thing that I think is challenging, and I kind of want to make sure to mention this in this setting so that all of the PCCEP members hear, is this bit. I'm going to share my screen again. Is this the affinity groups consulted? We have been having, oh, sorry, I didn't finish sharing. There we go. Is this bit of the affinity groups consulted? Because there's several ways that we can talk about that. They can be demographic groups. They can be community groups. They can be, pretty much like committees or something like that, organizations. So I kind of going back to our, there it is. This are like PCCEP categories or communities. We don't really, I guess we haven't really defined what kind of demographics we're trying to measure with this piece, all the only thing we know is that it is important to measure the community the impacts on like a demographic level, and that's kind of what we're trying to get to with this. So I want to like put a plug out that we're still thinking about what affinity groups definitions mean, and we want to I kind of want to like think about that with the group. You know, that could be, again, going back to demographic groups, that could be going back to like PCEP categories, like the way. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there and see if anybody has, maybe not now, but could think about it and provide thoughts and feedback. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, no, Leslie, I think that's going to be one of the other challenging things to pursue with that. I do know previous conversations around directives, we did have questions from community and PCEP around the public feedback process of it and being able to understand where different influences came in on changing the directives. And maybe that'll be a recommendation to the directive change update at some point in the future. So, but I think that's a interesting vector of understanding the community listening part of the PPB.
Right. Yeah.
Excuse me, sorry. Other thoughts, questions around this directive or directives in general?
No.
Barb?
Tia started to say something and I'm happy to
Oh.
speak, but Tia, do you want to say something?
I wrote it in the chat and then I saw your hand go up. So I just got confused because I saw two different statements in the directive and they didn't, and I wrote, I couldn't, in one statement it says they talk about the constitutional force standard, the legal basis when officers can use force, but in the same directive it says that it doesn't tell an officer when they can use force.
Okay, so looking at that, I think, are you asking about this policy and why we're removing this language from this particular policy?
No, when I was reading the directive, there's one sentence that says, it gives a legal basis when officers can use force, but then it says it doesn't tell an officer when they can use force. So I'm just confused around that part.
I think I remember this from our conversation with Ashley, Tia. I think that the doesn't tell officers when they can use force bit refers to the overall directive 10-10-10, right? Which doesn't govern that. It's 10-10 that governs that.
Okay.
Right. I think what we're trying to get at with this policy is this policy isn't governing the use of force. This policy is all around the investigation of the use of force.
Right.
And Captain Jackson can jump in if maybe you have a different understanding. But that's kind of, I think you're asking like, why are we striking or changing some of those words or removing that from this particular policy? And it's saying, if I remember the slide, it's essentially saying that we're removing those because it doesn't relate to this policy. It doesn't fit into this policy. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and Chris, it sounded like from what Ashley had said, they had definitions when they originally wrote this policy years ago, and they never actually applied those definitions anywhere in the policy. So they just used those words and they were actually never written into the formal policy itself. So that's why they were removing them, because they more they better fit in the 1010 directive as opposed to this directive, which was administrative in nature and just the process and how it was investigated.
Right. Okay.
Right. So I guess like really to get to the maybe to the point or the crux of like what your concern is, because what I'm hearing is like a concern of like why are we removing the constitutional standard for use of force from a policy, a police policy? It's still in like our policies.
Right.
It's going to be in a different policy that where it's more applicable. Does that make sense? And does that maybe address
Yeah.
your question?
Yeah, but that wasn't my concern. My concern, my only comment was I heard two different things in one directive. One where it said you can, but the other one it said you can't. So, but Dory explained it to me a little. I understand what you're saying
Okay.
now, but it wasn't that concern. But I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
No, I'm glad we can answer that question.
All right. Shall we move to wrap up, chairs?
Sure, yeah.
Well, open to, the agenda part of it and open to any public comment if we're done with our part.
Go for it, Barb.
I'm confused because I thought there was something else on the agenda, but I can't find it to pull it up. But what I had, no, okay. What I had wanted to say before, and I can't remember the exact details of it, but somebody else like Dory hopefully will, that PCEP actually has the power to ask for a review of certain directives that are related to the settlement. I was going to say that are affected by the settlement agreement, and then I kind of got into a chicken and an egg thing in my head. And I don't know if that's changing as things are rolling off the settlement agreement, or if you guys have the same power to do that with the same ones you had 3 years ago, if that makes sense. But my comment is mostly to remind you guys of that power because I thought it was a cool power.
Yeah, I can answer that. So, what you're referring to is language in the PCEP plan that talks about off-cycle review. My understanding actually is that with the changes to the way they're doing directive review, that will be a more open process to pretty much anybody now. So I think PCEP certainly could still request that. But Ashley Lancaster, PBB Policy Director, talked about how they are trying to formalize the idea of open and continuous feedback from the general public as well. So there might be some kind of differences in, I don't know exactly what those things mean. But yeah, I think broadly it is going to be more open process for everybody. And PCEP will still continue to be able to do that as well.
Okay. So at this moment, we're in open public comment, so we can still remain to take comments on the topic at hand, or we can open up the floor to comments that deals with any of the work that PCEP is doing. So please raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you for open public comment.
And PCEP members, if you all have anything else you want to
Yes.
share, that also applies to you.
Yes. Go ahead, Judith.
Thanks. I just want to say what great work I think you're all doing. I am incredibly grateful for it. And I've been around the PCEP stuff since way in the very beginning with the DOJ. And I just think it's so great to see it just doing so well. So thank you. It's nice to see some old friends in here too.
Thank you, Judith.
Thanks, Judith.
others? Comments or questions? Kip, I saw you come off mute.
Oh, no, I was just off mute. I had a thought, then I decided not. I say that if there's time left, we should all go rush over to the CBPA meeting and rush them and ask a bunch of questions of them. So, but sorry. It is interesting that because of the intersectionality of the work that we do, that we really do need to get to a staggered schedule so that we're not impacting each other's meetings. So Dory and Liz, thank you for working on that. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'll just add, it would not hurt for their members to hear that directly from you all. So if you feel so inclined, you can email them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is part of the problem is that they are, and understandably they have a lot of work in front of them, but they are kind of scheduling meetings ad hoc at the end of meetings. So they'll be like, okay, let's meet next week. Let's meet next week. And so that's a little bit of what's going on and what we're trying to figure out. But maybe if they were more aware of other conflicts in the city and heard it from other community members, that might that just might be a good thing to share.
Thank you.
All right. Shall we wrap up? Kip and Tia, I want to close this out here.
I've done enough talking. Yes, please.
Okay, I can. What's next? On Wednesday, April 29th, we'll be having PCCEP's full committee meeting. Hope you all can be there at 6 o'clock. And it says till 8, but sometimes we're there till 8:30.
And I did a bad job of making this slide, but I'll just add that in that full committee meeting, PCCEP will be doing its elections. And then also, hopefully, sometime in April, we will see that PCCEP emergency ordinance for codification coming to council. So that is also an event to be aware of. Yeah, and that's all I wanted to add. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate all your contributions tonight.
Thank you all for coming tonight. See you next time, next week. Thank you for your time.
Take care. Have a good night.
Thanks all. Take care.
Good night.
Everyone. Thanks, you guys.
All right, thanks
Recording
everybody.
stopped.
Bye.